The fun must be always era will continue for the Sharks, but bringing the fun times back to San Jose is not going to be easy. Erik Karlsson recently said the organization had to decide which direction it wanted to go in the near future, and that decision happened Wednesday. Tomas Hertl signed an 8-year, $65.1 million contract that begins next season and runs through 2030. By signing the #1 center to this deal, the Sharks made their intentions very clear. Assistant General Manager Joe Will said that this is a commitment to winning now, a commitment to pushing forward, and he also said that Tomas is a known quantity in that #1 center position, along with Logan Couture, and those are extremely hard to get no matter what you have in picks and prospects. The initial reaction to the move was not particularly positive online, as especially from people in hockey who are not from San Jose. It was more mixed among Sharks fans, as some were happy one of their favorite players has committed to playing for the franchise through the rest of the decade, and others, particularly ones that have been clamoring for a full-scale rebuild, were less excited. Will, Tomas Hertl, and the Sharks did not take the easy path with this decision. There would have been some immediate pain had Hertl not signed and been traded in the next few days, but the long-term planning part during a rebuilding process always begins with an abundance of hope and patience. Hertl might have found the grass to actually be greener with an organization closer to winning the Stanley Cup in 2022, or maybe he'd be longing for sunny South Bay days by November. Instead, there is going to be scrutiny and skepticism. Fans want their favorite teams to win, but it's not so often that many disagree with the club about when they should be trying to do so. The Sharks have improved the season from the past two, but injuries have cut into the gains, and by late April, the record might not look so much different. They have pointed to tangible signs of progress, the goaltending has been much better, and the penalty kill has been excellent. The power play has rallied into the second half, an intangible thing, like a better sense of the locker room, more commitment to playing hard, and better acceptance of the style the team wants to play. Some of those signs of progress are not necessarily a lock to be sustainable into the next season or the year after that, but the Sharks have played many more rookies this season than anyone else in the league. But playing and becoming consistent impact players are two different things. Welcome back to today's episode, everyone. If you like my content, make sure to subscribe, hit the like button, and turn notifications so you know when I publish next. With all that out the way, let's get into today's episode. It is a very fortuitous timing that Hertl signed his contract, because earlier in the day, The Athletic had published a story from Dom and Shayna Goldman about building a roster capable of winning the Stanley Cup and the ingredients the top teams need. So here's the team that the San Jose Sharks played, which was the Florida Panthers, and as you can see, it's not that fair because the Panthers have built something extremely special after years of turning teams full of high draft picks into something far from greatness. Here's more of a mid-tier cup contender, a team that people don't really believe in outside of the local community, but a club that's energized its fan base and found some real hope after years of being good, but not nearly great enough. Now here's that same checklist for the current edition of the Sharks. So clearly you can see that this is a very tough road for the Sharks to try and close the gap on their most talented peers. If this was the path the franchise had always wanted to take, then retaining Hertl became absolutely imperative. Losing Hertl would have downgraded this course of action from challenging to nearly impossible. Hertl was one of the people the Sharks needed to convince about this plan. Clearly his love for San Jose and how the organization, the region, and its hockey fans have treated him and his wife played a role in his decision. He said that his heart was always here at home with the Sharks, and I wasn't really like wanting to leave, but you never know because it's still a business. Hertl and his representatives at Newport Sports Management still had to believe to some degree in this plan the Sharks had set forth. Will didn't think he had a quote-unquote recruiting pitch for Hertl, but opted for saying the club was transparent about how they believe this organization will be successful. This part of the plan, getting Hertl to commit, worked. Having him on the roster set a baseline for expectations next season. Now comes the hard part. This will be a different kind of process. The margins are going to be drastically slimmer. Will's soundbite about winning now and pushing forward was an easy target for disgruntled fans, but what he had said about how they intended to push forward was extremely significant. This franchise has drafted well historically, with some hiccups that I've often coincided with not having a high pick to build a class around. The decision makers believe their recommitment to keeping the draft picks and making solid selections in the 2020 and 2021 and then forthcoming the 2022 classes are going to pay the necessary dividends defense to increase the overall talent on the NHL roster. It's going to be a race against time, which players among a prospect pool led by William Eklund and Tomas Hertl will develop into impact players, and will any of them do so in the time to provide capable support for the current veteran core before father time prevails with some of them? Well, that's for time to tell. Just looking back at the chart above, we still aren't too sure if all those players are going to be on the roster next week, let alone next season, so use the phrase "a series of adjustments" a few times while discussing how the Sharks intend to make a plan. They will definitely need to squeeze in more value out of the roster despite the salary cap limitations that will be in place for at least the next few seasons. Hertl's contract should not be an issue. He is a capable player of providing $8 million or more in value and should continue to be at least for the first half of the deal. But his extension, plus another expensive one coming for Timo Meier anytime between this offseason and before the start of the 2023-24 campaign, is going to create less financial flexibility. Will talked about finding more players who add value despite smaller cap hits. Those drafted players will be part of it. Finding more hidden values in trades like the ones for Alexander Barbanoff and Jonathan Dahlen, or bargain bin free agent signings, will need to be part of it. That Florida Panthers team is a pretty good example of this, as Anthony Duclair, Carter Verhaeghe, and Mason Marchment cost almost nothing to acquire. They were just two cheap free agents and low-risk trades that happened, and they got them, and they have become now superstars. They combined for 57 goals and 125 points while costing a total of $4.8 million against the cap. So the assistant coach said that it's a constant series of adjustments. It's give and take with the salary cap. You can't just collect and build. You have to maybe trim in one area a little bit to add in an area that you need a little bit more. And there could be tough decisions ahead. I mean, the Sharks are going to need to be creative regardless of what happens with the Evander Kane contract grievance. And that's kind of the reason why they had to trade a guy like Jacob Middleton. A move that on the surface would not look like a commitment to winning next season, but the return, which they did get in Kaapo Kakahonen, provided a lot more value over the next few seasons. This could also lead to maybe buying out Marc-Edouard Vlasic's contract to free up more cap space at the end of the season, which would maybe free up space for the next 4 seasons. But the Sharks are probably going to need some help with this plan. That could be an unexpected surprise in the development department, or another team letting a valuable player slip away, or even a lucky bounce from the ping pong ball during the NHL draft lottery. They do still have Hertl, which means this plan to continue pushing forward is not without hope, but there are plenty of skeptics, and it's a reasonable argument to be on that side. Hertl is going to score many more goals and have plenty more fun as one of the faces of the Sharks franchise. Whether or not he and the club will win enough for people to remember this Wednesday as an ultimate success remains to be determined. Thank you guys for tuning in, and have a wonderful day.